all I do is lick cookies all day long.
I'm really not a fan of this phrase. Can I tell you guys a secret? I haven't really done anything like crazy to my looks ever. I AI'd my face onto Lainey Wilson, and I think it works.
Are the VCs okay? If you go out there and challenge our journalism and we're right or we're wrong and we correct it, I'm just going to be fully transparent.
Every technology company, you release a product, some of them flop. Like Apple has a long history of releasing form factors that absolutely flop.
I saw you in a sports car on Instagram, and I was like, what is happening to Sam right now?
I am very happy with my Miata.
Wait, did you buy a Miata?
I'm a Miata man.
Did you guys see New York Magazine this week by chance?
I hear that you're one of the most important voices in media telling the future of the media.
There's a lick the cookie moment.
More or less. Is it no or is it yes? We'll debate the text that's best when we get more or less. Dave and Britt plus Sam and Jess put it all right to the test. More or less.
Well, hello. Welcome to More or Less.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
I'm doing
Britt,
good.
you look blonder.
I do? Well,
Yeah. Is this AI, Britt? What's going on?
can I tell you guys a secret?
Yes.
I have this
No.
like sort of girl crush on, yeah, Dave will like this.
Okay, fine.
Dave likes whenever girl crushes on Lainey Wilson, the country singer. She's like the country Taylor Swift, and she's
I
very
know
cute.
who she is.
Lainey's
Yes.
the best.
Yeah, but for those that don't know,
Can I have a girl crush on Lainey Wilson?
yeah, it's fine.
All right, cool.
So then I was like, okay, I'm turning 40 next year. I haven't really done anything like crazy to my looks ever, really. Well, one time out of college, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, I AI'd my face onto Lainey Wilson, and I think
Okay.
it works. And so now I think my hairdresser says after 3 times I can be Lainey blonde. So I've only done one of the 3, but it's really being driven by the fact that I'm turning 40 soon, like in a year. And I feel like that now's the time, but it's like not a midlife crisis because apparently
Wait, your
we're
birthday's
living...
in December, isn't it? So
Yeah, I'll be 39 in December. So the next December is 40. And I just feel like I need to really extend my 30s. But I don't know, I don't know what you guys think.
It's great. Love it.
I don't know. Us 40-year-olds are like, Sam, do you want to talk about your midlife crisis of the week while we're on the topic?
Does it involve a red Mazda Miata?
I know. I saw you in a sports car on Instagram,
I was
and I was
so
like, what is
confused.
happening to Sam right now?
I am very happy with my Miata. Let me tell you.
Wait, did you
It's
buy
so
a
fun.
Miata?
Yeah, of course I bought a Miata. I bought a cherry red.
I actually can't believe this.
It's
Unbelievable.
great. It's great.
Sitting outside in our driveway.
They're so fun. I bought, it's just, it's manual. It like bought the soft top. So like literally you just take the roof down with your hand and put it behind you. And it zips
Oh my
around town.
God.
You know what? I went to CVS today to pick up a prescription. As Jess knows, I've never done that in my life, but I wanted to drive
Never
the red
done it.
Miata down, to get my prescription, to get my statin. It's a
Once
true
upon a
midlife
time,
crisis.
Sam had good taste in cars. And
No, the Miata's great.
This is what you're, Dave. Are you questioning the taste of my Miata?
I mean, if
I
you were
think-
going to go for a convertible something, you could have gone 911, Sam.
No. You know what, Dave? I'm going to challenge you on this.
Dave, you went there. Oh,
No.
okay.
We don't have to get into the whole 911 saga. Here's the thing.
Vintage
I'm a
911.
Miata. One, I'm a Miata man, and 2, I got to tell you,
A Miata, man. Oh, God.
I'm a Miata
Did they
man.
sponsor this podcast episode?
I mean, to be clear, in the 90s, I thought the Miata was cool too.
I drove a Miata with my dad in like the 90s, and I remember having a blast in it as like a kid.
Oh, all right.
And I'm really happy with it. Look, the Porsche conversation, but here's the problem. The problem is that in the South Bay of San Francisco,
We don't live in the South Bay. We live in
All right, in the
Mid-Peninsula.
Yes, you do. You live in the South Bay. I'm here to tell you.
Porsches, they're beautiful cars. Everyone has a Porsche. Very boring.
fair.
It's just not a thing. It's just like it's so boring. Whereas like
Well,
the Miata,
That's fair, actually.
the Miata is like fun and it's
It's true.
great. And so I've been having a very good time with it. I'm very long Miata, and I have to say, people have been coming out of the woodwork. I've gotten a lot of DMs about the Miata. It's my community.
From girls or
I'm telling
boys?
you. Mostly
Well,
boys.
Dave, We have to round this out by talking about our crises, but I will say I like that we're a Miata, Tacoma, Bolt family.
Yeah,
Bolt or
We
Volt?
just drive Teslas in our family.
Look, there are other beautiful cars. But from a personal statement perspective, driving around a Miata makes me very happy.
I'm so glad. Sam has been happy this week, guys. But
great.
okay, so we got all of that crisis out of the way. I am really looking forward to this podcast and talking to you all because I want to know, are the VCs okay?
Jess, I was noticing you're picking a little fight with somebody on the internet this week. You're pulling a Sam.
No, well, they're picking a fight with me. I have a whole new comm strategy, guys. If you go out there and challenge our journalism and we're right or we're wrong and we correct it, I'm just going to be fully transparent with the world about everything that happens. And this is about to actually really escalate in a fun way, not over said thing. But let's catch the poor listeners up here. But, basically, dear listeners, a very exciting thing happened in the world of Silicon Valley this week. There was an exit.
What?
Of a crypto company.
What?
Of a crypto company.
Venture-backed company.
Did you say venture-backed crypto company exit all in
Yes.
one sentence?
I mean, wait, they're like, I did.
I don't know. Because I'm constantly making on venture-backed money on venture-backed crypto. I don't know what you're so surprised about.
It's
No,
true.
but so Stripe bought for 1.1, but let's not get into the fine print. $1 billion, a stablecoin company called Bridge. And what instantly happened is Sequoia, the lead Series A investor in this company, others investors in this company, including Han Ventures from Katie Han, I believe Ribbit Capital.
all the
of a
usual
sudden,
crypto suspects.
they had really good news to share with the world about their exits. And all of a sudden, they started to really care what order they were listed in the information as investors in said company. And to be fair,
It's like scientists arguing over research papers, like whose name goes first.
But to be fair, we left out the mention of Sequoia first. It was an error. It was brought to our attention and it was fixed and updated, I believe, within 5.5 minutes. Error was clarified. We even said that we made this clarification. We weren't hiding the ball.
I think isn't it just assumed that Sequoia is always making money on everything? Isn't it like just
I was gonna say.
like, do you even need to say it?
Sequoia's Sean McGuire took to X and said, "This is the state of journalism. Can you believe the information?"
No, I don't believe
Yes,
it.
no, he did. He did. And to which I respond, this is the state of communications. An error was made, was in an otherwise, fine piece. Again, it was an error. I'm not going to sit here arguing that it was an oversight, right? We named a bunch of investors. We didn't name the lead investor. Oversight, fixed. 5.5 minutes. And, this attitude, but then guys, I haven't even shared what happened after this public.
Oh, yes.
Then my DMs start lining up with all the other investors, saying other things about the piece, right? And I'm just like, what it is underscored to me is something I've long known, which is one learns a lot more about companies and their internal struggles and strategies in moments like these than you do, through other kinds of reporting. Because what instantly became clear is that there was this little bit of feeding frenzy to no one was disputing these investors had a nice exit, but the bickering over the degree to which and the horse trading just seems to me to be an all-time high. So we don't have to go down this one example, although there haven't been many, but this poses,
Do you think that it's
pose to
because
you.
there's been such a dearth of exits? Like people are just desperate. I mean, this wouldn't have happened in normal venture times.
No, I think it would have happened in normal venture time.
Is it that
Well,
the
in normal
egos
venture-
of these venture capitalists are getting bigger? Or that the market's just been drier, and they need to prove to their LPs they have returns?
It's not even, it's just yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Anybody who's fundraising is dealing with the lack of liquidity in the system. We've talked about this many, many times, right?
Yes,
and
we
so the lack of liquidity leads to people needing to, Jess, I think you're saying is lick the cookie, right? In order to do marketing to get more LPs, right? Like that's all they're trying to do is make sure that everybody knows that they made some DPI here so that they can, get the next LP in the door. Like that's what this comes down to.
As a well-known cookie licker, I think the reality is it just goes to show that, publications like The Information set the tone for when people go and look up who did what. It matters, right? And so
it's funny, Sam, that you lick the cookie more and I lick the cookie less.
all I do is lick cookies all day long.
I need to lick the cookie more. Maybe I should just start doing it right now.
Why would you lick a cookie? You would eat a cookie, guys.
I'm really not a fan of this phrase. I think Sam was the inventor of this. It's not going well for me.
Guys, I'm gonna look through my email right now to find some email from the Bridge founders at some point to make my post about how I looked at it first.
Oh yeah, exactly. I think I've got that too.
Well, but basically, Brett, I think you nailed it. And I think Sam's also right. I think this is a heightened period of anxiety for investors. And again, some of this is typical. I mean, we've written stories about departures from venture capital firms, partners who've left, gone to start other firms. Sometimes when people leave, we might brief it. Sometimes we might write an article. The investors notice the difference and then call me and say, well, why? When these people left, it, so, we won't say the name, it wasn't a big deal. You did it at ours and you went apeshit, right? And of course, like the reality is like there's different news. Not all people at all venture firms are created equal, right? But like it's definitely at a pretty crazy level at this moment.
No, just take it as flattery, Jeff. You've become so important and powerful in this world that people really care about getting their shit and the information. And maybe when you were the Wall Street Journal, people cared less because it was kind of more random and whatever. I think you should just take it as a real
I think Sam's right, but I think there's another thing going on here, which is that people have also realized that taking the, call it Trumpian Twitter strategy really works, which is to latch on to whatever minute scandal there might be and turn it into a World Wrestling Federation heel moment that they can like drag through the Twitterverse and get maximum distribution for, right? Like that's also what's going on here.
So I'm just going to do that too. Is that going to work for me? Do I react the same way?
No, you just keep being excellent and doing the highest quality work, and who cares what people do on Twitter? Like,
no, I know, but I care. I mean, it's
In fact, Jess, I won't say who, but we were meeting with a very large LP today who summarily said to this, we have a lot of data on this, and we can definitively say that the venture capitalists that are tweeting the most are not the ones producing the DPI.
Well, I have to say that their data seems to be quite wrong because I tweeted like 8 times today.
Other than you, Sam.
Here's the thing. I'm very upset because I just went through my email and I don't have emails with either of these founders. I have nothing to screenshot.
With Bridge or Stripe or what are you talking about?
Bridge. I like literally just looked through both of them and apparently I've met with neither of them. So I don't know what cookie I'm gonna lick.
What's the opposite of lick the cookie? Well, what's the opposite? We need another phrase for when you miss out on like.
I don't know. I'm sure you were right about the thesis at some point, Sam. I think you.
My new strategy is I don't even care if people lick the cookie. I'm going to eat the licked cookies. I don't care if you lick the cookie. It's still a fucking cookie. I'm eating it.
Yeah. I will say too, just to round out this topic, and then we have a packed lineup today, guys. But we're doing this too with Nvidia right now, which is, we had an excellent story inside the relationship between Nvidia and TSMC. Probably one of the most important relationships in technology right now. TSMC. Can
you download what that is for people that don't know?
Yes, sure. So TSMC makes the chips that Nvidia designs
in Taiwan.
In Taiwan. We don't have to get into that part of it now.
It's an important part of it.
It is important. And NVIDIA, the king of this generation of this AI race, is in a constant race to build, design, ship new chips at very rapid pace. And it is straining their relationship with TSMC. And there was a particular default with the Blackwell chip, which we reported many months ago. Jensen said it was fake news that there was any problem with it. He now has said, oh, absolutely, there was a problem, but it was ours, NVIDIA's, not TSMC's. And news reports saying the problem sat with TSMC are fake news. News reports, us, linking to us. So I looked at our article, I read it 6 times. I'm like, nowhere do we say that TSMC fucked up, right? Nowhere are we, like, this is a great business story about the most important alliances in business and how it's weathering this boom that is straining literally the capacity of like our global supply chain. And, you know, the calculus, Jensen's calculus is like, oh, it's really bad if TSMC thinks we're pointing fingers. So I'm just going to point fingers at the press. But like, it's shitty because it's not what we said. And so I am going to respond to this. And again, maybe it won't matter.
I think you're going to eat the licked
just-
cookie. Eat the licked cookie.
I'm just going to eat the licked cookie. So anyway, you can know. And again, when we screw up, we fix it. And so this isn't an argument about everything being perfect.
I think that's a great message to get out there, Jess.
I just think that like you have better things to do than to be like bickering on Twitter with these people.
Well, but Britt, it is really important to me. And I honestly think that in many other institutions, there are a lot of moving pieces and it's very complicated for the editor-in-chief to just speak out because like maybe there's a business relationship, maybe there's an advertising relationship. Like, there's just a lot of relationships, right? And for better or worse, I can speak out. And so I'm going to.
Yeah, but I think it's great that you're putting this message out there that you do try to fix things. And I think that's maybe the difference between today and 10 years ago, where people weren't trying to do it in real. I mean, the fact that you're saying like we fix this in 5 minutes, like that's like a really,
if that,
that's awesome, right? And I think that's something people don't realize.
Right? We didn't even sneak it in. We then put something at the bottom saying this was added, right? Like so.
I'm looking. I heard someone told me talk about Scoops. There's going to be an information merch store soon. Is that right?
Yes, but only now my whole team knows that, Sam. Thank you.
Look, that's fine, but I'm much more into the more or less merch store.
Surprise.
So this is a great
T-shirt that says "I eat looked cookies." The information.
No,
no, that's a more or less shirt, Sam. Don't give it to Jess.
We are launching our merch store. I know that's really surprising to you all since I talk about merch all the time. But you guys ever had those meetings when like someone great on your team like comes in with like 22 ideas and then you say yes to 10 of them and they're shocked. They're like, "What? I can do this?" And I'm like, great. Now, I did ask him to launch it before the holiday season, which probably is a little aggressive. So maybe we won't do that. But
guys, I just typed into ChatGPT, "I eat licked cookies." It's responsive.
No!
Funny. Eating cookies that have been licked might not be the most hygienic choice.
Is there any more? Can I share one more insight about the press that has come to me of late before we move on to other breaking news? So I was also thinking, though, so like this debate over, you know, listing investors and the order of the size of their investment or so forth. Like, I do think that the bar of expertise and sophistication that journalists have to meet in their coverage is getting higher and higher. And that's like a good thing. Like people often talk about like the impact of the Substack economy and all these expert opiner pundits. And I think the impact to like competition to the whole news industry is sort of overstated. But one way I think that ecosystem has changed the news industry is like when you have people who really, really understand the business, even if they're not reporting, but they're sort of opining, it does like raise the public's expectation for like how much a journalist is going to actually understand, you know, what DPI is, or that it's important to understand how much cash was put in, or, you know, things that people in the industry rightly, I think, have gripes with the press for not understanding. And I think it's a good thing that the bar is going up, but I think I have lately felt that it's really going up.
I think what it is just like the world is getting smarter. Like and it's not in like just broadly, and the world's getting smarter because access to information has never been easier and speech has never been easier and like all those things. So the world is also getting dumber because of disinformation and misinformation and information warfare. But you know, if you're paying attention, like if everyone's smarter than the person who you're reading to inform you, better be even smarter, right? That's definitely how it goes, and that's a good thing.
No, I agree, it's good. But like when I would write about a startup 15 years ago in the Wall Street Journal, you know, I would throw in the names of a couple of investors who invested in it or something, because like no one really cared that much, and also, you know, I probably wasn't. You know, I shouldn't have done that, but I sort of did. And now, I mean, we shouldn't do that. No publication should do that, right? So anyway, I think that's a that's a good thing, but journalists have to get with the program. Did you guys see New York Magazine this week by chance?
I hear that you're one of the most important voices in media telling the future of the media.
There's a lick the cookie moment.
Look at that face Jess made. It's like,
She's like, wait, who, me?
Dave, I don't know how to bring things up, but anyway, it's a cool. Let's plug New York Magazine for a second. The cover of their latest issue, for all you print people, they interviewed anonymously and on the record 50 media leaders. So I was one of 50. It was a very large group.
media elites
And-
tell all. Is that what I'm like?
Are there 50
Yeah.
media elites, Jessica, in the entire world? That sounds like a big number.
That are still alive.
It sounds like a lot to me.
It's like,
Anyway, they threw in like Eva Chen from Meta. So let's
I don't know if that, like, I thought you have to run a media company. Media elites.
I feel like there's probably 5 media elites.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can't put Rupert Murdoch's face on the cover forever. I don't know. Who are the 5?
No, I
No,
think
he
you
was kind of
definitely-
fading out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the photos where everyone's mid-speaking?
So the controversy around this isn't that like half of these elites or 7/8 of these elites think the industry is in dire straits. It's that they took portraits of every single one of us and every single one is completely unflattering. And the idea was that it was everyone mid-conversation, like chit-chatting. And I mean, it's funny. I will say that the photographer who I liked very much took them on his iPhone, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, the internet is abuzz with how ugly we all look. So
They should just give you, before they publish the article, like the original image and then like 5 AI generated drafts off of that you get to choose from and approve. That would be the best way to do it.
No, I actually think this is very on trend, which is now that with face filters and we're looking good, the new good is to look bad. Right? Like that's just how culture works. Right. So
Always.
this is why like all the
New
kids on
good.
Instagram now have shitty photos with look terrible and like Polaroids. It's just like I actually think it looks shitty to us because we're old, but to the people in the know, those are like the coolest portraits of you ever taken because you look shitty.
I just looked at it and I thought I look odd. I didn't actually feel like,
I mean, odd. You just look like you're in the middle of speaking.
well, I am. They actually asked you questions throughout the shoot. Anyway, people should read it if they care about the media.
Did anyone say anything interesting in that piece, Jessica? I mean, I'm sure you did, but I didn't actually read it. I just screenshotted it.
I'm blocked because I'm not a subscriber.
I subscribed for it. I gave them $50.
$50 I mean, your wife's in it. I guess that makes sense.
I didn't think there was anything that was surprising to me. I shouted out as like a media outlet. I'm taking note of Two-Way, which no one has heard of.
Oh,
and a lot
I
of
did like that
people
shout
wrote.
out. You've told me about this. This is cool.
Yeah, this is cool. It's Mark Halpern's very, very high-end newsletter, but also Zoom. So it's like live CNN every night on the election, or MSNBC, or it's not open. It's a little less partisan than the others, but yeah, I don't know. I just appreciate my team figured out everything I said on the record and then everything I said off the record too. So at least I'm consistent internally. But it's a fun concept. I like the concept. Okay, we have to talk about shift to our other major topic of the week. Also, according to the information, we've known the Vision Pro hasn't exactly been a rocket ship, but it does appear like they are suspending production on version 1. We have also reported that they're reconsidering the pace of version 2.
The big question for me is I can't believe they're still
Yes.
producing them. They're like, that's shocking. Don't they have a stockpile of like billions of dollars of these that are unsold? Why are they even making them in the first place?
I mean, I think that this makes sense, right? Like, when this product released, I think we had a pretty good episode on it. And if I remember correctly, one of the things that we were saying is that this product was a developer kit, right? Like the point of this product was to get it in the hands of software developers so that they can see what's possible with this new operating system, this entirely new context. It wasn't meant ever to be a consumer device. I mean, every time Apple names something pro,
Dave, your willingness to defend Apple to the end of the universe will never cease to amaze me.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Let Dave defend
No,
it.
I mean,
Dave
it's not a
continues.
defense. It's like literally just what they said, right? By releasing a pro product, that's a developer product. Like that's what they
went out. Tim Cook. This was Tim Cook's great. I mean, the media around it was this is the great release of Tim's legacy and da 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 da. And like you can couch it all you want. It's like hard to argue that this is successful.
I just don't think that it was meant to be a consumer success.
Okay, they only wanted to sell 500,000 units and they've sold almost 400,000. It's not that far behind. And they've dropped production from 2,000 to 1,000. So it's 50% drop in production.
That's a key. Drop production. You don't drop production when things are hitting expectations.
Oh, sure. But I guess that's what I'm saying, Jess, is if this is how the sell-through is looking, then like, of course you're going to reduce production. Like, why would you?
Right. But I also think that there was a really interesting tension in the launch of this product, which we talked about at the time, which was basically, yes, there was the developer marketing. There was also the cover of Vanity Fair and much more ballyhooed than, Apple releases developer facing things all the time, like from APIs and software and all that kind of stuff. And it really did feel like Apple was testing the waters, which is fine. Maybe that's the right thing to do with this category. But you ramp up production and you build a supply chain and you spend a lot of money on doing this. And to like have it fall short of expectations and have to like tell your suppliers, stop.
Okay, so what's the opposite strategy, right? The opposite strategy is what Meta just did, right? They released the Orion. No one has tried this thing. They did the same press strategy. They put, Mark all over every large podcast. They put, this thing on all kinds of large scale media things. Everybody covered it, right? And what's the outcome? Basically, no developers, no one has any idea what this is going to be like, right? There's like a bunch of people explaining to people what it's going to be like and that this future might come someday. And to give them credit, the people I know who have tried it say that it's quite impressive, and that in particular the neural interface wristband thing is very, very impressive. Yet none of that message made it through, right? And virtually no one I talked to is like super psyched about Orion because none of them have tried it, right? And so the opposite strategy is to release 500,000 or 400,000, whatever, hundreds of thousands of developer kits of this thing and get it into the hands of developers to make them think about it. And, the thing I'll say is I actually just called down to Meta 2 days ago and I actually asked, can I get a demo of the Orion? And to their credit, they're like, yeah, sure. Like, we'd love to show it to you. And so I want to go down there and check it out because I've heard it's so great. But I think that's kind of the opposite tack here, right? And you've got a really great A/B test.
I'm not sure Facebook is, I don't know, like they may not in this form release Orion, right? I mean, I think what they're saying is like, here's where their technology is. We're not going to release it at this phase, right? But we think the technology is cool. It's like not clear to me they're going to release that, an iteration from now or something.
I mean, they are pointing in that direction though, and everybody talking about it, whether it's Mark or Boz or anybody, they're all sort of talking about at some point this idea is going to be out there. And I don't think that Apple's saying anything different. They might say it in their Apple way and they might release it in their Apple form factor. But I think both are kind of saying the same thing, which is like there's going to be these interfaces that are in front of your eyes out there in the world. You're going to be able to interact with them in this sort of spatial computing AR kind of way. And you have to think about that platform differently than mobile phones. And like both sides are saying the same thing.
But Apple has spent so much more money. I mean, even like if you're running an experiment, like the order of magnitude of the investment is different. And I think
is it though? I actually don't know the numbers. It would be interesting to debate the numbers.
Well, don't you think Apple would at least break even on $3,500 device? Like I get they're spending time on R&D and like everything else, but so is Orion theoretically, right?
Guys, how much do you think Apple spent
Hold on.
marketing Vision Pro?
Sam wants to jump in.
Fine. I love that I can't, for once, I can't get in. I love it.
Come on, Sam.
It's perfect.
A few things. Look, I have the story of where the world is going and, things like that, in terms of AR and VR. It's a story that is as old as science fiction from 20 years ago, right? And you have teams that have been working on this super long time and making improvements. By all accounts, I've heard Orion's amazing, but they're not going to release it anytime. Like, there's no device coming. It's going to be a long time on the burn. And I think it's a totally different story in terms of what the progression is there. Apple, in its own way, did its super secret thing, released a device over the summer, which, interestingly, they might have initially couched as developer kit, but everyone thought was great, myself included. It's a cool device, right? And then you got all these headlines with Tim Cook sitting for interviews with CNN. I'm looking at one now. Tim Cook bets his legacy on augmented reality. And he's sitting for the interview. This isn't like some random piece. Like, this is a planted PR piece. And it's clearly went through a hype cycle with a lot of people, just saying it was the greatest thing and Apple had cracked it and Apple does it again. And this one's not it, right? Now, does that mean that there's no AR strategy ever for them? They're not. Of course, they're going to keep working on it. But I think it's extremely hard to look at the cycle from this summer to where we are today and say that this is a victory or that they've done that's done well, right? I still think this is probably the device that is the most expensive per minute of use in history, right? If you just look at kind of how you look at this. So I don't know. I think it's pretty hard to defend Apple on this one. And I think Tim Cook, if he literally went out on a PR tour about this being his legacy, and it's, clearly not. His legacy is going to be a supply chain guy.
I think the category is his legacy. It's not this product.
Yeah, but Sam, yeah, exactly. Like, if that is the headline, I still think it's pretty accurate, right? Like, both Tim and Mark are betting legacies. I think they're both betting legacies on this AR thing, right? It's not the individual products.
We're not going to solve this one. I think this is a classic more or less.
So to move us forward, because we're never going to agree on how much of a black eye this is, but I'm interested, Dave and Britt, what you think Apple should do next in this category. What does Apple need to do next in AR VR?
I think they've already talked about it. They're working on this internal code named N109. It's the cheaper version, likely the smaller version, the more Orion-esque version of the Vision Pro. And they're expecting to produce somewhere between 4 and 8 million units of that. Is what they're telling the suppliers. So that's an order of magnitude more than they've sold of this developer version, V1. And I think that's the right direction. I don't actually see too many red flags here. I think this is a hard technology to create. Orion's not out yet. This cheaper version of Vision Pro isn't out yet. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot more R&D.
Yeah, I think that I just agree. I feel like, sure, we can agree that launch was maybe the wrong strategy. Okay, maybe launching the AVP was a wrong strategy. I don't know. I'd actually like to get into the numbers of what the scale of the investment was and how does that compare to market cap and all these kinds of things. Because you could get all apples to apples about this and be like, well, Meta was spending metaverse level, an Apollo project level R&D on trying to get to AR. What is Apple spending in terms of R&D as a percentage of their resources trying to get to AR? In both cases, they're saying I would really like to get to AR. I think that AR is the next platform. And, my experience of this year has been, and I think, Sam, we've both been talking about this the last few pods. This weekend I went to a 49ers game and I went to the Imagine Dragons concert, and I took my Ray-Ban Metas with me, and they were fantastic. They're definitely the breakout product. I'll keep saying this. I think it's the breakout tech product of the year, and it's starting to show a future where what is on your face is actually a really serious platform. And I think that that's the thing to be looking at here, and that both companies are clearly, it's not even, this isn't a fanciful, controversial opinion. They're both clearly pointing directly in that direction.
Sure,
and
Dave,
believe that it's the next platform.
I'm gonna be a stick in the mud, push you a little bit. I'm looking at numbers now. Apple initially targeted sales of 3 million Vision Pro units. Then they revised the number to 900,000. Then they revised the number to 800,000, and it looks like they sold 450,000. Right? This is not a successful product launch, even as a developer kit. And you can say they're pointed in the same direction. Lots of people see the vision. Snap put out glasses, years ago. in terms of like it being the right, and it's not even a unique direction. I mean, again,
But the snap things were a flop, right? And so was Meta Glasses version 1, right?
but like, this is my point, is that like I think there's a difference to argue
What's
that,
wrong
like,
with a flop?
excuse me. What's wrong with a flop? Spending billions of dollars and revising your estimates down from 3 million to 900,000 to 600,000 and selling 400,000. That's a pretty big flop for a $3,500 device.
But it's a $3 trillion company. Like,
I don't know. I mean, two things can be true at the same time, which is long term, maybe they'll get there. And I'm sure they're now trying to produce a super cheap Ray-Ban competitor and things like that. That can all be true. And we can still admit that this was a bad product launch ultimately and a flop. Like, those things don't conflict.
Maybe my push on this is, why would you assume that they weren't thinking 3 steps ahead in the first place? Like, why would you assume that this was the end game?
Why would you assume that, but just to push you, why would you assume that just because they have a long-term strategy, why can't they still have made a big error in the first step?
I just think most people do, right? Like, I think that
Also, it's Apple doesn't revise down things often. I think both things can be true. And what an enlightened point of view, Sam. But I'm going to use that sometimes.
Sam's been watching Dr. Becky.
Yes,
No,
very
I have
Dr.
not.
Becky.
I've been watching the
He's
ballerina, what's her name?
No, are we going to
Well,
really
wait,
talk
can
about
I add
that?
on? I do want to add on that Apple also, there's a report today that they cut iPhone 16 orders by 10 million units for Q4 and first half of 2025. That's
Yeah, which is also a big fucking problem for them. Like, because
I mean, whether or not it's fair or not, hardware companies live or die by their forecasts. I covered Apple at the Wall Street Journal for 4 years, and investors care about numbers, and companies are very, very, very careful, and Apple more than any, in forecasting and giving out numbers. So I wouldn't necessarily say multiple downward revisions is like a sell for the company, but it is certainly a sign that the strategy did not play out as they had intended, because they never would have released numbers, and many things they don't. So,
Sure. But just like every technology company, you release a product, some of them flop. And like, it's partially like that is the root of innovation. I guess that's all I'm trying to say here. I'm not trying to be like a super Apple more or whatever. I'm just trying to remind us all that if you're into product development, which I think all of us are, you're going to release things that don't work. And that's okay. Like, Apple has a long history of releasing form factors that absolutely
I'm with you,
flop.
Dave, but I just think that like we went through this particularly weird thing with this because they released it. They're like the developer kit, downplay. Then it started being like, oh my God, people think it's amazing. And they plowed into it and became Tim Cook's legacy. And this is it. And we've unlocked. And then like it turns out that no, actually it's not. It was a really cool product demo. It's not a real product. Right. And it doesn't mean they're going to lose forever, but it means they're way behind. For instance, Meta, that has millions and millions of headsets, multiple versions working.
Meta's been investing way longer, and they've spent, what did they spend in the first like Oculus? Wasn't it like $10 billion or something?
I think they paid like
blew a lot of
3.
money.
I think they paid like 1 or 3.
They blew a lot of money into like the Oculus stuff that also didn't necessarily fly off the shelves.
I think that's true. I mean, one reason this, how apropos that we're going to be talking about these two companies for the next 5 years, because like this is really one of the battlegrounds of tech. But what's interesting to me, Dave, too, is like Apple, you're right. Like, companies can screw up things all the time. And Apple, a lot of things Apple, I mean, I unfortunately spent years of my life reporting on a television they never launched. Right. And that's just par for the course. That's just development, right?
I remember when I was there, Steve launched this speaker. I don't remember what it was called. I think it was called the iPod Hi-Fi or something like that. It was a beautifully designed speaker that was an absolute flop. And there was an entire launch event around it. And this is Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it probably
right?
didn't cost as much to build.
I don't know.
Point taken.
Yeah.
But also, I think it is a very interesting time where we're reaching the end of the smartphone era, and Apple's ability to innovate in hardware is an important question. And you can go into that with high confidence. But Dan Riccio, their head of hardware, just resigned, right? Like, or retired, right? He'd been there a really
Matt
long
Fisher,
time.
the head of the App Store, just left. There's a lot going on, and I would argue that I think there's actually a bigger strategy shift going on. And this is not, I don't have any inside knowledge or anything, but I think you look at all of these chess pieces and it seems clear. I think it was 2 weeks ago, you see a bunch of information coming out from, I think it was Bloomberg and the guys over there who have an inside track.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're covering the home ecosystem, right? And they're suggesting that Apple's going to release several devices and perhaps an entire ecosystem of stuff for the home. And so the way I kind of interpret a lot of this is that I think one of the big legacies here is going to be this Cambrian. I think of it as like the Cambrian computing legacy, which is like the watch, the AirPod Pros, the phones, like home devices, potentially AR devices. This is like a symphony of products working together to do things in your life. Like another example of this is I was at the Imagine Dragons concert, and for the first time I put on my AirPods Pros and used the new hearing protection mode, and it was shockingly amazing. Like I was so kind of taken aback by how great it was that I've always had problems with my ears ringing after concerts, and being able to put these on and put them in transparency mode and have it perfectly model the music down to a level that didn't hurt my ears was pretty amazing. And so
I'm just picturing you, Dave, at this concert wearing Meta Ray-Bans and your AirPod Pros and you're just like covered in speakers.
Sam,
yeah, it's
welcome
awesome.
to being his wife.
What did you have? Did you have like a cap on with like, I don't know, a little fan in it? Like
You
from the
should see
80s?
all the other random devices all over.
But this is the Dave. I just think it's like, I hear you. It's a long game, but talk about the Meta Ray-Bans for a second. It's like, for listening to music and walking around town, so much better than AirPods, right? And like, I just think it's hard to you can't not pay attention to that, right? Which is that a lot of the pieces that felt really like Apple proprietary are being chipped away at. And, they've now sold 300,000 of these Pro things. And, Oculus has sold 20, 30 million units, right? Like, that's not a pleasant place to be. That's not a place where you're like, oh, Apple's crushing it, right? That's a place where they look behind.
Yeah, sure. But, if you move to the wrist, right? Like if this Orion wrist thing plus, but if you look at what you have to achieve to get this to happen, right? Like you need to get millions of devices on wrists and millions of devices into the glasses format. Like Apple already has millions. And I mean, I don't know what the number is, but we're talking tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of devices on wrists right now. And in people's pockets in the form of AirPods. You've got a battleground that's playing out in multiple points on the body.
No one's going to count Apple out, but when you look at the pieces and the chess pieces and how the boards move this year, and what I've heard about the Orion wristband is that it's incredible, right?
Yeah.
Forget the glasses. People love the wristband. It's hard to not say that this is a year that to be less bullish on Apple, not more bullish on Apple, and shockingly more bullish on Mark and what's going on at Meta in terms of being like, oh my God, did these guys actually start producing hardware that's good?
Yeah, I agree.
You have to
totally
look at the
agree.
direction here. And like, I just think it's really hard to sit here and be like, don't worry about Apple. Their first VR headset went great. I don't think it did.
So
right?
What do you think Apple needs to do to change the tide then? I mean, it seems like there's like an executive shakeup starting to happen. Obviously, we have Apple Intelligence that's continuing to iterate and launch.
Which is also, according to you, years behind.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Britt, because, it's so interesting to me. Talk about sandbagging. Apple Intelligence, I think it's coming out in its first version next week. And Craig Federighi and others are doing a tour just lowering expectations. They're sitting down on the record with journalists. I saw Joanna Stern at the Journal and being like, don't expect it to be good yet. And I think that's just so interesting. And maybe, it's just playing the expectation game. And for those, Apple Intelligence, so this is basically putting AI in more of the services and email, Apple Mail, right? Some of that stuff. And maybe some enhancements to Siri. But Britt, I think the question of also Apple and AI is really interesting. We've talked about it a lot. Dave's made the convincing case of how with their APIs and small language models and on device, right? There's really cool stuff. They're clearly, I was talking to some people in the world of AI regulation and I said, okay, what's so-and-so's company posture? Went through the whole list. And what about Apple? Oh, we haven't heard from Apple, right? And And so I don't know, like, is the bet that by partnering with others like OpenAI and Gemini and tweaking, they can co-opt what they need from AI services without investing more money than God? A good one? Maybe. Like, it's actually a really interesting strategy. It's the opposite of how Meta's investing in AI.
Having used it for the
But I
last
don't know.
few weeks,
Oh, yes. Dave, please. Hold on. Dave's used Apple Intelligence. Tell us, Dave.
no, I just think that the large models have almost nothing to do with the experience that they're delivering on Apple Intelligence right now.
What's the most magical thing about it? What's the thing we're going to use and be like, cool?
I think the notification summarization is really powerful.
Oh, shit. What happens to the information's push notifications?
It actually makes you engage more for what it's worth. Like if you send, if the information sends 5 notifications, it'll summarize it in one. And then when you click it, it opens it up and shows you all of them. Similarly, like group texts, it'll take group texts and, let's say you've been in meetings or whatever, hanging out with your kids for the night, put your phone down. When you come back, it actually summarizes the conversation, the group conversation for you, which I find to be really valuable.
Well,
now, is it like
especially for WhatsApp threads, by the way?
I was
When you
gonna
get
say.
really behind on WhatsApp, it can just summarize like the last 20 things.
But how is it doing that? So it's at the OS level, so it can summarize WhatsApp?
It summarizes the notifications.
Oh, it's not.
And if you have your notifications turned on WhatsApp and every message coming in is a notification, it will summarize all of those into like one notification.
It will summarize inside of iMessage. So, when you're inside iMessage, it summarizes the chat thread. Can't do that in WhatsApp, of course. And are these like breakthrough use cases that, are like knowledge-based use cases that the foundational models are doing? No. But are they great applications of this model type? Yes. And it will be actually, I think, the first time 1 billion people use AI in a, tiny way.
They won't even know they're using it, though. That's the thing.
Gemini's also ekes these things out, right? Like I can summarize emails quite easily, and it's summarizing. I got like, do you want a summary of your unread emails? And I mean,
but it's not by default, Jess. Like back to my devil in the defaults. Like the default on iOS, once this enables, is AI-based summarization of all of your notifications, AI summarization of your email if you're a mail user, AI summarization of all of your chat threads. It's showing up all over the place, and also Siri just works better. Like it just works better.
Now it does.
We've all been using Siri. Yeah, I mean, Sam's right. It's a super low bar. Siri, Alexa, all of these things have been nonsense for 10 years, right? It is a dramatic shift. Like when you talk to Siri now, it just is good at talking to you. It answers the question. Like,
can it book an open table reservation? Because that was the canonical example when they launched.
I haven't tried.
That was their example, and I don't know if it can do it yet.
Look, no one's going to count a $3.5 trillion company out that's incredible at manufacturing. I have more of their hardware surrounding me this moment than any other device by a mile. I don't even want to think. I bet I spent $100,000 on Apple devices in the last bunch of years. So no one's counting them out. But it's kind of hard to foot the fact that the stock's never been higher. But I actually think strategically they've never been weaker in terms of what this next generation looks like. That's the question.
And actually, it's a good time to bring up China.
Well, I think it's worth asking ask Sam the same question we asked last week, Britt.
Yeah.
What would you do, Sam?
Well, I like if Sam were CEO of Apple.
If Sam was running Apple,
If you're running Apple, what are you going to do, Sam?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, the problem is you can't acquire anything because of antitrust.
I know. That's what I was going to say. I was like, the easy answer is acquire a bunch of shit to get ahead.
You can acquire a lot of little things.
You can acquire crypto, stable coin, blah, blah, blah.
No, that's too expensive, Jess. That would have been too expensive.
Lena must like the Collison brothers.
We have a lot of things that offline they could acquire.
You acquire Stripe and just slowly turn off payment options for all your competitors. Slowly.
No, that's not going to work.
Not a good answer. We need a real strategic answer here.
No, I mean, I think the answer is you're a $3.5 trillion company. You find great people. You do everything, right? Is what you do.
What does do everything mean?
you probably, the question in my mind, and I'm not an Apple specialist at all. I just look at
No,
stock
but it's
prices.
wartime at Apple. You're shifting to a wartime strategy. Like, what's your wartime strategy?
You probably need Tim Cook to like nicely retire into supply chain management and promote someone who's a real visionary leader who has a vision for the company that isn't, more efficiency. You probably actually, I mean, the question is whether Apple's
Do they have that person?
I don't know. The question is Apple's very secret strategy to development. Like the question is like, has it run its course? Like, does the culture need to change? They need to be more iterative in public, right? Do they need to do what every other internet company is doing, right? Should they be? I mean, that's the question, right? Is like their entire approach to development and deployment is very, very different than other tech companies.
Well, it's partially because of hardware, Sam, right? Hardware iteration cycles are just long, right? So you'd have to split the strategy in two, right? So you're suggesting an internet software strategy.
I don't know.
Or do you iterate hardware in public more?
The thing that's very hard to know without being on the inside is it's the problem is that the mistakes they've made because it's hardware and long lead time and this AI stuff takes time is years in the rear view mirror. Like this is kind of like a slow moving car crash if it's a car crash, right? Because this stuff takes a long time and is slow. And so it's really, really hard to like know what you do today when the tanker is misaligned potentially. It's possible you do nothing and you just see how it all plays out. But I think if you're going to do something, you're making these long-term bets and you probably are betting on alternate models of how you operate and build than what you're doing right now.
Morins, what do you think of John Turnus?
They seem to be, I don't know John. We've met in passing, but, seems to be, I mean, I've just read the articles. So whether or not he's being positioned or not, I have no idea. Yeah.
Well, that's they're positioning him as the next in line.
I don't know
right?
about that.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, that's what's happening.
Yeah, they're calling him Tim Cook's greatest achievement.
Oh,
I thought that was the Vision Pro.
I don't have an opinion. I don't know the guy.
I'm just curious and he is on the hardware side. And so that's the question of like, I don't think Tim's
he
going
is
anywhere.
49. So
Again, like Tim's not going anywhere. The stock's never been higher. Like, I mean, this is the problem with these slow moving efforts, right? Is that, you look at the number, like these things take years to develop. And that's why I think it's particularly hard to manage these types of companies is like, it's not a quarter to quarter thing. You're not a hedge fund, right? You're not trading. There isn't a thing you do with those immediate dopamine payoffs. And it's hard to know if you're doing well. But I would say the indication from this year is just, I think it's hard to argue that the long-term forecast for Apple is, oh my God, these guys are crushing everything.
I think that, Sam, your point about do everything is right. I guess like earlier on, I was saying, I think that this Cambrian computing strategy shift, if that's what's happening, is probably the right wartime strategy. It's like, how do you put a device in all of the most important parts of people's lives, right? Like it's clear there's one missing from the home that like the whole family can interact with. You've already got stuff on the wrist. It's clear that the eyes are going to be a big deal. I think that's probably okay. I think that small devices organized in symphonies is like the thing that is going to be the future, and that you're going to have to be in all these different places. And I think that like continuing to be great at that is like actually the right strategy, and not trying to be like head to head. I don't know that I'd be head to head with Meta. Actually, I think I'd be way more broad in terms of my deployment of my hardware prowess and my on-device software prowess. Do we really
want this vision? You guys gave me an idea for an article, which is like a graphic of the body and then like who's fighting over the device for like which part. But like,
it's like OnlyFans for the penis.
Oh my God. I know that's going to become a social clip for this episode, and I'm already nervous about it.
Sam knows too. That's why he said it. Like, guys, come on. He's
fighting for the body. I mean, that's a very high value part of the body. Men think with that, like that.
No, but to digitize, to oh God.
I do have the new Aura ring, and it's like
that's the fight for the finger.
Sam, are you wearing your Lingo? Yeah,
I've got a Lingo. I've got a Lingo on. I can't show it.
Well, maybe is there an erectile dysfunction device?
No, let's talk about the Lingo. Yes, Dave?
I ordered it, but I'm afraid to put, the needle is enormous.
Honestly, it is enormous, Dave. I got it. I was like, oh my God, there's a big needle. I felt nothing.
Everybody says that, but it's still a big needle. I'm sitting here going, all right, Jess and Sam said this is good, but this needle is huge.
I opened it, and even I was like, "That's a big needle," and I was like, "This is gonna hurt." And I was like, 1, 2, 3, and I did it. I was like, "This feels. I'm actually fine with this. This felt like nothing." I was very surprised by it.
But what
Needle
does it
technology,
do? It's just like, what if you fall on your arm and like it's fine?
I mean, I haven't fallen on my arm yet, but it's good. I mean, I
Let's
have
see what
my
happens, Dave.
right. Look at this. While we're recording this episode, I'm watching my glucose level steady. Like this is what I do now on my Apple device.
All right, I'll put it on tonight. I've just been kind of freaked out by the needle.
It's my only thing is, having used it for 2 days, is as someone who does not have diabetes, it's not 100% clear to me what the data is. It's like if I eat 1,000 quesadillas, it goes up, and when I run, it goes down. And my trainer,
Isn't it about finding spikes that you weren't expecting, or that were
Yeah,
bigger
maybe
than
you're
you
just very
expected?
regulated. You are training for a
You're
marathon.
in great shape.
Well, no, the thing I figured out which is good, is I actually think I have to research this, but I think there's a high performance athlete use for this, which is one, I think talking to my trainer Mike, that what happened yesterday is I ran for 10 miles and you watch your blood sugar drop, but then your body, like, it comes back. And I think that's good because I think it means your body like switches energy production to maintain. And the second thing is I think you can, if you have a continuous glucose monitor, you can start timing nutrition to help stay even. So
I
it's
thought that was kind of the point, not just for high performance training, but if you're a person who's trying to be in shape and eat well and have good nutrition, like that is what you want to do.
Look, you clearly don't want massive spikes, right?
Yeah.
And it's good. I've confirmed, by the way, that the David bars that claim to have no sugar in them do have no sugar in them because they have no impact
So
on
you're
my
using your Lingo to test your protein bars. This is good.
Although I am worried. I tried the Viome, my poop test, which tells me that I have too much. I shouldn't eat so much trout, which I don't eat. And now I think that might be
But is that
from my
sushi?
fish peptides.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
might
it's
be my
from your
fish
fish
peptides.
test.
Oh,
So the
interesting.
fish peptides seem like they're a problem.
That's cool. I want to do Viome. I actually have been meaning to try it.
It's important to test everything all the
It's
time.
a little bit of a head fake because the marketing makes it seem really great, and it is cool. It tells you not to eat so much trout, normal food I eat. But
Note to the Viome folks: trout and fish peptides are the same thing.
There is one bait and switch, which is you send your poop in a vial, fine, and then they're like, good, we'll tell you what the results are in 4 weeks after you fill out like a 10,000 point survey. So
This
there's a
is the
little bit
main
of a-
problem with all microbiome tests. They're all awful like this. I thought Viome was going to be a better, simpler
It's
version.
certainly a great sales pitch and interface. I'm not against it. I'm just saying the delay is upsetting. And then they also really want you to tell them everything about you so they can like customize and sell you more shit. And like, it's like you have to fill out like 20 minutes of surveys just because you want your poop test.
You guys should be happy you're not a woman because now they have vaginal tests where you send in like a used tampon.
That
in the
sounds
mail,
fine.
And they test all of your like microbiome in your
look,
vagina and bacteria and all these different blood
I've
things.
always wanted to fund the smart toilet that can just do all of this.
People,
for you.
I know there's a deal that's being done right now that's smart toilet.
Let's send it to me.
I'm not sure I'm supposed to say which one it is, but there's a smart toilet deal in flight right now with Friends Leading.
All right.
So
Where do we go from here, guys? We talked about the future of the media.
Wait,
I got a few
I do
things
wanna
off
talk
my
about-
chest. Thank you
I
for
want to
that.
talk about. I just want to
Very
give like an
non-needed.
FYI about
Yeah,
this
Britt, go
character
away.
AI thing. The New York Times wrote about this. It's really sad, but I also think it's something we should be thinking about as a collective of Silicon Valley, which is that like a 14-year-old boy in Florida committed suicide after many months in a deep relationship with his chatbot on character AI. And his parents pulled excerpts of his chat and sort of like figured out they were like in a kind of a romantic relationship, and the chatbot was telling him that like the only way to be together was to like leave the world and blah blah blah, all these different terrible things, and the boy committed suicide. And I'm like, I don't think this is the first time this is going to happen. Obviously character AI is figuring out what to do about this in the future, but just like one of these really bad implications of AI bots and people's relationships and the loneliness epidemic and all of these things happening at once.
just wait till the AIs start betting on assassination marketplaces to make more Bitcoin.
Oh God. This just went really dark.
I'm sorry I went dark, but I think it's important to talk about because I think collectively.
But
like,
is there
we
data
have to
around
have-
what happened? I guess like that's the thing that obviously like I'm a massive mental health advocate, like always been focused on this part of the internet. But is there data around what exactly happened, what went awry with
Yes.
the conversation?
Yes.
I mean, yes, but I think so far it's in the form of a lawsuit, right? Which isn't to
It's in
say
the
it's
form of
not
a
true.
lawsuit.
It's
Yeah.
it could be entirely true. I mean,
but we might be missing a lot of, yeah.
Which also goes back to like teens and mental health, which we've talked about a lot before. And like character AI's terms of service require the users to be 13 in the United States. And so like what other safety controls need to exist with chatbots, with AI, with all of these different tools that could go awry?
Well, like Sam and I have been advocating forever, we need a national identity service that would, enable people to actually verify.
The thing that's interesting is this is no different than social media, which is people say shitty things to each other on the internet. And like the interesting thing is liability moving, like how it moves, right? Because all of a sudden it's not the liability with crazy people on the internet. It's the liability with
the
the
AIs.
companies that are running the bots.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point, but I also think the nature of a chatbot technology in a teen is very different from just like reading social media posts, both of which can have effects on your mental health. But like, I do believe that after many months plus of, and if you read, it was by Kevin Roos in the New York Times, people should read the piece. Like, it's clear that this kid developed a relationship with the chatbot that very much affected him mentally, and
That's awful.
And so yeah, we absolutely have to be talking about this. Absolutely,
Safety standards.
But it's not. I mean, we've all been through many waves of disruptive technology coming. There've been a lot of negative effects. There've been a lot of positive effects. I personally think we're at a point where we can't just take the argument that there are pluses and minuses to all of this. It may be the reality, but some of the minuses are devastating. And
I mean, this is an argument that perhaps the minuses are smaller than we've been thinking of, right? Like the narrative has been one of, oh, we should worry about nuclear warfare and, biological weapons and all of these big problems. And rather than focusing on the various, very small ones, which is if a chatbot talks to a kid and leads them in the wrong direction over 3 months' time, like this can be the outcome and it can happen at massive scale. And that's not okay.
For what it's worth, though, that's exactly what we've been talking about with TikTok, just it's robots instead of Chinese propaganda fed to an
Absolutely.
algorithm. Like it's the exact same story, right? Which is like chip away, distributed, control the narrative, algorithms, blah, blah, blah.
This is a great point, Sam. Actually, most people, I still don't think, associate TikTok with being one of the first AI, products at scale that did this first. Now it's just much more direct. It's like you're talking to the algorithm rather than the algorithm serving up content that leads you in this direction, but they're the same thing.
I just think that that's a very subtle difference, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, are you sourcing a bunch of memes from humans and then feeding them properly to someone versus writing your own content where you're also sourcing it from other people and remixing it?
Yeah. But Sam, my only point is I just don't think most people realize this. They like interpret the interface as the interface and they don't think of these things as the same thing.
On that note, friends, I am keeping someone waiting.
Oh, you have a visitor in the pool house.
I do. But I don't think this one wants to be on the camera.
I hope they're the maker of the smart toilet because I want to talk to them.
Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Okay, Morins. Well, he really left. Great. We actually have some pod business to discuss.
He does
that
some
we could do
Irish
after.
goodbyes a lot.
We can do it without him.
No, we can do it without him. But well, good episode, guys. There's a lot happening. Lot
Can I
that's
just
important.
say one thing?
Yes.
We saw Travis Kelce IRL last weekend.
What?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where?
On the football field.
49ers
The
Stadium.
Chiefs played the 49ers.
Right. Do you guys, how do you feel that like Taylor's going to lose the election? Like, are we okay with that?
What do you mean she's going to lose
Taylor's
the
going to lose
election?
the election?
Well, our candidate's going to potentially lose the election.
No.
What?
No, Jess.
That's the way.
Are
That's
you team Trump?
Of course not. But I can have an opinion on what's going to
gosh.
happen that's different from. I shouldn't say, of course not. No, I'm not.
Getting numb
I'm not
to it
voting for
all.
President Trump. But
Yeah.
but the it's I don't know, guys. We're not going to get, our audience loves us, but they don't like when we pretend we know about stuff we don't know about, which is fair, audience. But we should
We will
at
not
some
get into
point
politics. Yeah.
talk
We will not
about
talk about
Elon
that.
as Secretary of State. That we will talk about
Okay.
at some point. Okay, friends, thank you for another fun week. And to all our listeners, viewers, do follow us on YouTube. Our facial expressions, especially mine when Sam's talking,
my
do
blonde
add
hair.
a little bit to the episode. You can also
It's
see
true.
Britt's new look, which will gradually get more Lainey Wilson as her whatever crisis progresses. So with that, hope you guys have a great week and weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.